Hi, loves. Welcome back to Love&I, the show that talks about real life experiences on dating, relationships, marriages, everything else in between, and the favorite of all, sex. On this episode, we're going to talk about how do we learn each other.
And before we go into that, I think it's a little bit funny to go into a little bit of backstory of kind of this podcast, which is a little off topic, but I think it's worth everyone knowing. So we sometimes will sit here and start this up 10 to 15 times before we start for whatever reason. And so that's part of the fun of doing something like this is, you get to see this one recording, but typically before we start, it takes about 5 or 6 times before we...
It takes 3. And the reason is I just cannot start. And I insist on starting each time. I never let you start. I think I have this great entrance, but I don't. And end up laughing a lot. And I don't know why, but I think I will improve going forward. It's just so hard for me to put in just one short presentation everything that I have in my mind. What is this show about? So this show is about everything that we're going to be talking about today, that we're probably going to be off topic. But it's hard for me to just be concise and just stick to we're going to talk about. So let's just, you're going to hear us and you're going to know what this show is all about.
And the funny thing is before we started, she goes, okay, the first thing I want to ask is love enough? And that's why I bring up that story is because, you see this, what you typically see is this perfect picture of what people are. You don't get all the takes and all the background and stuff like that. And so, love isn't enough, in just the stereotypical sense. It's about the background and, and also bringing up kind of what goes into starting these podcasts every time is, thankfully Lori and I have the kind of relationship where we can be open with one another, and I'm lucky that I have that with my wife to where I can be brutally honest with her. So, one thing I've learned is the first thing you got to do is build up that trust. Show them that you love them. Do the little things. Pay attention to what they say. And, I pay attention to Lori that she always wants to open. So when we text a few times, I wait until we get through that initial startup and then we're good to go.
He is so patient. It just, I always wondered when he first got together with my best friend, who is his wife right now. And I always wondered.
Right now? You said the wife right now.
Yeah, she's...
Wife always.
She's our wife now. Okay. I'm foreign. Okay. Sometimes I don't make sense when I talk. But right now, no.
Now.
All right, so you're making me laugh, so you're distracting me. Anyway, so my point was that I always wondered how he did it, because let's just be honest, me and her are not the easiest people out there.
No.
To communicate, to argue with, to debate, or even sharing opinions. We're very opinionated and sometimes stuck in our own ideas. But it has been a breath of fresh air to be around you, see how you handle the communication with her, your relationship, her personality. And I've seen all of these different colors and scenarios of a true relationship and what it takes. And I'm sure it's not easy at any point.
Nope.
But you just demonstrated that for me every time I start these. And then I laugh and then I'm like, scratch. And then you just sit there patiently, you just look at me, you're like, are you ready now? Okay. Are you ready now? So I admire that. And that's something that's very important when you communicate with your friend or with your partner. How do you accept who they are? How do you embrace it? How do you admire them for their own uniqueness? So those are all things that are so important.
Yeah, and this is going to sound a little braggy, but most people, whenever they speak to me and talk to me, they can see I'm a good person. And so, what goes along with that is I can typically say things and get away with things that most people don't. So, we went on a cruise here recently, and while we were on that cruise, I am a very open, a very vulnerable person. I will talk about anything. And while we were on this cruise, I don't know how we got on this topic, but I started talking about my sex life. And my wife was right next to me, and I started talking about how I do this podcast. And they were like, how can you talk about that? How does your wife handle that? Like, does that bother her? And one of my friends pulled me to the side, and she was just like, look, this might bother her. And I do constant frequent check-ins with her just to say, hey, are you okay with this? Blah blah blah. But I am being open and vulnerable in who you are. You know, that's just how I've always been. But you can't just do that, though. You have to be a good person. You have to set the foundation. I don't ever go into something and just start talking about my sex life. Like, I make it very clear that, I'm very conscious of, I'm a white, straight male. I am a very privileged person. I live a better life than most people do, and so I make it very obvious that I'm aware of that, I'm conscious of it, and and because of that, I'm just a lot more open, and a lot of people find that refreshing. And so when you're going into relationships, it's just about finding someone that, one, you can be yourself, and two, someone that can be themselves with you as well.
So what does being yourself mean?
I guess the best way to put it is, just do an example. So when I make my wife breakfast in the morning, if I make her cereal,
and here he goes.
she
take notes.
After she gets done with her cereal, her stomach makes a lot of noises and stuff.
I thought she does avocado toast.
She does, but
you switch now?
Well, no. If we're out of eggs or avocado,
okay, that's her second choice. Yes. Okay, it's good that you keep up.
Yeah. So her stomach will make very weird, obnoxious noises.
She doesn't admit it, but she's lactose intolerant.
Yeah. Well, it's very, very clear that that's the case. Mm-hmm. So thankfully, we have that relationship where I can come out and just say, wow, that's very loud. That's kind of annoying. Can you stop?
So stomach noises or gas or like body functions, that's what makes us ourselves? Well, those are things we can't control.
Oh, I mean more like, she doesn't care that her stomach does it. Like, she still eats cereal and stuff and makes her noises.
Yeah, I mean, what do? You can't control it.
Yeah.
What other things are there that, because we hear it all the time, and I hear it all the time. Be yourself, just be yourself. And I'm like, I think I am. But at the same time, I realize that I'm not truly myself with everyone. So I'm very much myself with my friends, with my close friends, but not with everyone I meet, or like if I go on dates. Something just restricts me from really showing my just careless self. Sometimes just say shit that just comes to my head. So what do you think that is? Like, if you just meet a woman, like, how do you know if she's being herself or if she's being her representative?
Well, and I've kind of touched on this before, but what I would typically do is I would always have deep conversations my first date. So, and what I would typically open up with is, whether it was a book I was reading or something going on. So, for example, I was reading Invisible Woman, and it talks about how the world is really made for men, like the way that seat belts are made, the way that phones are too big for women's hands, just kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, they didn't consider boobs at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, what would happen is when I would go into these dates, I would bring up like the books I was reading, the stuff I'm reading up on. And, and that would typically lead to certain places. And I've talked about this, well, I won't go back into that, but, we, bringing that up, it shows that I want to have these kind of more intimate conversations that kind of hear from a woman's point of view what it's like going through these day-to-day things. So it typically starts there, and then once it comes across as, I'm caring, I want to hear about this stuff, then I can pretty much every time I've just been able to talk about whatever I want. So it's like I said, it's about building that foundation of, you're a good person. If you're faking it, people can tell.
Right.
But it's about just building that foundation, showing you care, that you're open to listening, and people can be comfortable around you. And sometimes I would have I have some out there opinions on things, and so typically what I would do is I would share my opinion and then explain why I share it, and people will be like, okay, he has been vulnerable with me, he has shared an intimate detail or an opinion that's out there, and he's explained it, so he thinks about his opinions, it's not just something he throws out there. He's okay with people, because typically what I'll do is say, but I'm always open to hearing other people's point of view. I'm always interested in hearing, how can I improve? Because, it's just part of growing up. And so if you kind of create that dialogue of, you're here to learn, you're here to have that conversation. I'm vulnerable to have these conversations with you. I hope you can as well. It's just, again, building that foundation. But it's a little bit different, I feel like, with women, because if women are a little, I guess, just based on my experience and what I've heard, I feel like it might be a little bit more difficult for women because, when women say or do certain things, it might be taken the wrong way by men. So...
I like the part that you said by talking about, by having deep conversations and sharing certain things that you read or or you've heard or you talk to other people about, and listening to the other person on their opinion, how they feel about it. I think that's a very good way to start that open communication and to build that, comfort of speaking your mind and saying, whatever you think without having to control the outcome of it or what the other person will think about. We don't tend to do that much not early on relationships. I think that starts happening later when people really get comfortable, right? So at first, I have had, you just knocked me out. Hi, that's where I am. Okay. Thank you. So if you're listening to this and you don't understand what's happening here, he just totally moved the camera and he blocked me out of it. It's okay.
Sorry, guys.
My voice is strong enough to still
yes, it is.
be there. Okay. And I think I lost my train of thought. Nope, it came back. People tend not to speak their mind if their focus is to gain this relationship, right? So your goal is to have a relationship with this person, and you try to be as adaptable to the person, you listen to them, you're listening to their needs, you're listening to their opinions, and even though you may think sometimes it's a little bit off the wall, or it's just not very logical, or they have a tendency to get angry at certain things, you kind of like brush it off because they have these good quality check boxes that you think, in the long run, this is going to be better for you than certain quirks that they have, right? Certain flaws, like we see them as flaws. And we don't show our true opinions. Like lately, I don't give a shit anymore. So lately, I've been expressing exactly what I think. If the other person says something that just does not sound right to me at all, I'll express it. And I'll say, I don't necessarily agree with that. Or, really? And that would show that we're not compatible in how we think or what our views are. But most guys do not do that with women. It's like they're afraid to hurt their feelings if they say that they don't agree with them.
Interesting. So you have experienced men more agreeing with you than differing from your opinion.
Yes, especially in the beginning. I have seen their true opinions once you are in a relationship and you are sharing day-to-day activities, mundane things, and then you start seeing certain things. You're like, okay, well, I thought that we agreed on this, or I thought that you had the same views as I do, but I'm seeing that you don't. But in the beginning, they're like, it's like, I guess could that be like a conquering type thing?
I don't know.
Like, I'll just not express right away.
I mean, in my experience, people that are like that will just agree for the sake of agreeing, there's typically an ulterior motive in doing that. Because, like I said, I mean, as long as you show that you're willing to have an open conversation, because one of my best friends, I disagree with most of what he says, but because we both come to the table with intelligent conversation, it just makes it easy to talk with him. So whenever you meet someone, if you meet someone who is open to conversation and isn't one way or the highway, then that's good. It's just, I feel like, especially people younger than me, maybe older than me as well, but it's a lot of, if you don't agree with me, you're against me. Like, it's what my opinion is, that is the right opinion. But, to me, I've just always had this open mindset of, I feel one way or another, and, you can feel one way or another, but a lot of people, they're just not like that.
And disagreeing on opinions is one thing, and I always think that you should stay open to other people's perspectives because we all have created our own opinions on something. What's important is when it comes to values and when it comes to your goals for the relationship, for the life, people tend to, let's take some key areas. So money, finances, right? Finances, or even sleep, or activities, or adventures, right? Those are things that are important to somebody. So let's say you meet somebody that is very adventurous. And when you meet them, they talk about all their experiences and the adventures and, how passionate they are about these things or some type of passion that they have. And you're not. You like to have an adventure when you feel like having an adventure, but you don't really have to have that as part of your life. And they go, oh, that's fine, that's okay. But that's something that becomes an issue later on, because when you're in a relationship and they want to plan these adventures every month, you're like, I'm not really up for it. So do they become deal breakers? Like, how do we navigate those?
I mean, it just depends. I mean, some people just might not know how adventurous the other person is or how often this other person likes to do things. And, as you start to learn how that person is, it's about having, that honest conversation. And I feel like a lot of people, when they hear, hey, we do this a lot, I would like to do it less, people are like, oh, he or she is changing. It seems fake, but it's probably more, sometimes it can be that person just expressing what they want. And I have learned that typically whenever you are giving feedback on things, it's taken negatively. Or if you say something very directly. So, for example, we went to go play pickleball recently.
Okay, without me.
With you.
Okay.
And
I didn't know what recently meant.
I was very direct and I said, hey, we're not going to do this here again. And you took it negatively. It impacted you.
I didn't.
It impacted you.
No, I felt bad that we couldn't do it.
You were a little bit upset.
I was upset that we couldn't play.
So,
not because you were, displeased with the place.
But so typically when you're direct and you're giving feedback, it's not okay. Give me more.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's like, all right, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so whenever people are direct or giving feedback, it's seen as this negative thing. And sometimes it is. But sometimes it might be good just to take a step back and realize, okay, because I think one of the most difficult things that people struggle with is realizing sometimes you're not going to understand why your significant other is upset or feels the way that they do. But while you don't understand that, you need to understand that they feel that way. So even though you don't agree with it, your significant other, it bothers them. So you have to understand why it doesn't bother them. So, it's just about listening and realizing that you're two different people and taking into account each other's needs, which can be very
difficult. Listening to you right now, I'm like, damn, I've done it all wrong. But I agree 100% because I've experienced it in relationships. We tend to see things from our point of reference, like what we would do or what we would feel about certain things. And we don't realize that the other person, even if it makes no sense to you, even if your logic just does not accept it, they are within their right to feel that way. And you just have to respect it even if you don't agree with it. Now, in theory, sounds freaking awesome. I wish that we could control all of those triggers that happen in our body when somebody says, well, guess what, Lori? We're just not going to do this anymore because this is just stupid. And you're like, what? It was fun up until this point. What happened? And you want to know. So you keep digging and digging. Why? And in a way, you're trying to convince them of your view so they can be like, okay.
Or you try and start blaming the other person.
Yeah, or be like, oh my God, you're so... And then we see it and we start seeing that, okay, this person out of nowhere is just going to let me down. Is just going to contradict me, is not going to agree with me. So what's the point? So we kind of throw our hands up in the air.
And I think it's very important when we're talking about this is realizing that not everyone is compatible.
Yes.
So, as an example.
But how many people do you know they're not compatible and they love the shit out of each other? And they're together for many, many, many years. And I'm not saying that because they're together for many years, they're happy or anything. I don't know that. But they love each other and they're like, Tom and Jerry.
Sometimes, and some people get into this dominant and submissive. Like one of my best guy friends, he was one of the most fun-loving people ever, and then he married this woman, and now he's just this very submissive, passive man. It's just
so he really changed completely.
Oh yeah, 180 of how he used to be.
Okay. So to me, that's losing yourself to
100%.
please another person. And I have seen that happen. Is it worth it? Men tend to do that more than women do.
Yeah, because women are a little less moldable from what I've seen. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't think so. Of course, there will be little things, like before, I used to wash all of my colors together, all my clothes. And now I can't.
Not surprised.
Now I have to do blacks, colors, and whites. And that's a simple thing. That's not changing who I am as a whole.
But you're not washing just your clothes, though. You're washing your partner's as well.
Yes.
That's why you have to change the way you do it. But if you were to just wash your clothes and you said, all right, I'm going to continue doing like this, but it's going to be my clothes only.
Yeah. Well, and
How would that be perceived?
not. I don't know. I don't think she would love it. Probably
Okay, so
not.
what if she didn't? What if you said, this is what I want?
Well, then that's one of those things where you ask yourself, is it worth me having my autonomy in cleaning my own clothes, or is it okay that I will wash both of our clothes and I do it her way? And to me, it makes more sense to do it her way because one, she will sometimes clean my clothes too, as well. And two, I mean, at the end of the day, she's right. I mean, I shouldn't wash my whites and blacks together. So, in that aspect.
I gotta
But
ask, like warm or cold water?
I have no idea. It's just whatever.
So you just picked a button that was there?
Yeah, whatever it was on. Whatever
And your whites were not gray or anything?
Oh, they were different colors.
Okay,
But I didn't
gotcha.
care.
Okay.
But again, as an example of what you can't do, I used to date this girl, and she had stayed in another country for a little while, then moved back to America. And the country she was at was their culture they're very direct. So, for example, we went to one of my friend's Halloween party, and it was the house was I thought it was a nice house, but to her it was tacky. And so she was saying that to the host of the house, and she wasn't saying it in a mean, vindictive way, but it was a matter of fact kind of way. And while I realized that it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and me, I am a very social person. I care about people's feelings. I listen to how they feel. So whenever I would go out and about, if I went to a friend's house or something like that, the person I was with was just very vocal and would just point out
Like
these
what?
things.
Like, what would she say?
Like we went to one of my friends' house and they were doing some reconstruction on their house, or redoing their bathroom, and she goes, "Do you think it's a good idea to have people over when you're having your house renovated?" And it was
Whoa!
just, again, it wasn't in a vindictive way.
No, it's not vindictive, but it's not.
It's not.
I mean, what are you? I mean, here's the thing: we got to ask ourselves, what are we trying to say, or what type of feelings are we trying to evoke on another person? Like, if I'm here as your guest, do I want to make you feel like shit?
And again, she wasn't trying to make the person feel bad. It was just, are you comfortable with having people in your house?
Oh,
we could have
okay.
went out and grabbed dinner or something else.
Oh, okay.
So, but a lot of people didn't understand that. I did. I understood her point of view, but a lot of people didn't. So, for me,
it's the way that you say it, I guess.
it doesn't matter how you say that one. Like some of the stuff you can say.
Well, are you guys more comfortable with having us over, or would you have preferred to be out?
Well, by the time she made that comment, we were already at their house. So,
Okay.
So, again, it's just about finding, and to me, again, I'm a very social person. I love hanging out, and I knew she would rub a lot of people the wrong way, so I was like, this isn't for me long term. So when I say, pay attention, listen, understand your other person's point of view, your significant others, it has to be something that meshes with you.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's definitely the most important thing.
Yeah.
That there are certain things that, of course, we're not going to agree on everything. But then again, the most important things in your life, values, or what is good for you for the future. This is not the perfect spot. What is good for you as far as what you see long term, something that fits you well, and will fits you well in different environments, because you're going to be in work events. You're going to be... What
the hell?
Oh, okay. Can we delete that part?
No.
Oh, it's still going.
I mean, it's still going.
Okay.
Other than, what did your mind go after work events that made you start laughing?
Family. No, I was laughing because the way we were sitting.
Okay, so our
You
knees
hit my
touched.
knee.
It's not the end of the world.
It's not that, but as I was like, okay, I need to move, but at the same time I had to move in a position where I could still see myself in the camera. This is totally dysfunctional. Apologies. Start over.
Okay, start.
Not over, because you don't want to hear me all over again, but let's start where I left off.
Should I stop it?
No.
Okay.
So a lot of people are going to take their significant other in different places, right? So you're going to have work people, family, friends, and if you don't mesh, and if they don't mesh with your people, that's going to be an issue. So you're going to end up explaining things for them or just not take them.
Yeah, and you were asking, and kind of on that note, you have these people, they have these mindsets, can you change them? And whether it's good to change, like I said, I go back and forth. It just depends. So one thing that me and my wife are struggling with right now is I don't wash my face before I go to bed. I go straight to bed. And evidently that's a big deal.
You don't shower before you go to bed?
No. And evidently that's a very common thing that women do.
Yes.
Or at least wash their face. And so...
Do you brush your teeth?
Yes, I brush my teeth.
So how do you brush your teeth and not wash your face? It's like right there in the same place.
If I wash my face, I feel like it wakes me up. Like I'm washing my face, my hair gets wet.
Okay, so you're doing this like last minute when you're ready to crash.
Yeah.
You're not like giving yourself, because we usually do this like half hour before bedtime.
Oh no. She showers right before she goes to bed.
Oh.
So she's very big about me washing my face before I go to bed. And I just don't see the value in it. But then she explained to me, and this is kind of what I'm trying to get across here, is she explained to me that the amount of bacteria that can get caught up on your pillowcase can be 6 times as much as a communal bathroom.
She has a point.
And so it was her explaining that to me for me to realize that, that's why you should do it. So it's about being open and listening. I mean, does she ever listen to me when I say stuff like that? No, I mean, it's always her way. But,
why do you say... Okay, now. Why do you say it's always her way?
Because it is. I mean, there's not...
But you just said it's always her way.
Well,
even if you don't agree with it?
Unless it's something I'm very adamant against. Like so if it's something that's only I'm going to do, I won't do it. So for example, she wants me to wear hats when I'm in the sun. I hate wearing hats. So I'm just like, I'm not going to wear it. She says it every single time, but that's just not who I am, and it doesn't affect her. It's only me that it affects. I'm just like, I'm going to do what I want. But if it's something that affects her, like I'm sleeping on my own pillow, so it's not going to affect her. I don't have to do it.
Right.
But if it's something like the laundry thing, like that's going to be something that might wash out her clothes.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, fine, I understand. But if it's something that's just for me, it's not going to impact the other person. Just be like, give advice, explain why you think that way. And if the person doesn't do it, I mean, who cares if it doesn't impact you?
And what if it's something like drinking?
I mean, that might...
Doing drugs, like something that, okay, it's affecting them, but it does affect the relationship as well.
And that's what I mean. So like drugs and alcohol, if it has an impact on the relationship, then yes. I mean, me wearing a hat, I don't think that's going to be the end of the world.
So let's say she didn't believe in showering, and she showered like every 2 to 3 days.
As long as I don't smell her.
Okay. So it would impact you when it comes to the smell.
As long as it doesn't touch the 5 senses.
I got you. Okay, then you should just let it go and let it be whatever they want it to be.
Yeah, so for example, and she does this all the time, she is the queen at this. But whenever you're telling a story, if you say, it was on October 16th, 2019, we went to this place, and she'll go, no, it was October 13th. Like, does it matter what date it was on? No. Just let it go.
It's the personality.
Yeah. So...
because, well, some people are very, very truthful, and they want to be truthful in every single detail.
But does it matter is what I'm saying.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
And that is my root to everything. Does it matter? Does it impact the story? Does it impact me?
Right.
So so if someone's telling a story and they're getting stuff wrong, as long as it doesn't impact the end result, I don't care. So
Right? Really? So if your partner is telling a story not completely, because now I'm exaggerating, but certain details that they're just switching up, that wouldn't bother you when you listen to the story?
as long as it's not something like I brought my wife flowers, and whenever she's telling the story, she says I brought her a cage of snakes, and she hated it. That's different. If it's something like, you know,
What if they just exaggerate it?
I don't care about.
Like this 2 dozen flowers and you just got like a couple of roses.
That's fine with me. I mean, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to correct someone unless it impacts something going on in the story. So, like I said,
Okay, so you're very goal oriented in a way, or not goal oriented, but stick to what's important.
yeah.
And not many people do that.
No,
I don't do that.
A lot of people struggle. The two things that people struggle with the most, in my opinion, is pride and patience. I have gotten so much in my life just because I'm patient. Who I am as a person, how people perceive me, 90% of it is because I'm patient. And
You are.
I think that if you can be patient, that just opens the door to so many relationships, so many opportunities, so many relationships. As you know, my wife is she can be very honest, and she can be very in your face. And she is who she is. And so, she's very vocal. And so, sometimes she'll say things that she doesn't mean, and I'll take a step back and be like, okay, I'll say it in the moment. I'm like, I know you don't mean that. I love you. It's okay. Let's keep arguing. So, it's about just listening and realizing sometimes that, when people are upset or stories being told or whatever, sometimes people just say stuff they don't mean or they misstate stuff, and it's just like, who cares at the end of the day? It is what it is.
That is powerful.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Do you catch yourself thinking that it's hard, or
Oh, yeah.
it has become natural, like a second nature to you now?
I mean, it's never. What I'm good at is when it's happening, not reacting. So, like these past few weeks, I've been working a lot, and when I don't sleep very well, I tend to get quiet. I'm typically a very outgoing vocal person, but when I'm tired, I don't talk as much. And for my wife, she sees that as I'm upset with her. Something's wrong. Something's not right. So, when I come home, I make sure that I try and be talkative, and I will never say anything negative. Like the other day, she was doing something and it was bothering me, but I knew if I brought it up because I had been quiet, I hadn't slept well, I was at my same jovial self, she would think that I'm upset with her. So I kind of pick and choose my moments where I bring stuff up. I've learned that it's better when you're getting bothered by something, don't bring it up in the moment.
Don't react right away.
Wait a day, and then bring it up.
Oh, and you do that. You do that. Okay. So what happens with me, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that would relate, I tell myself that. Do not react. Let it be for now. Find the right time, the right moment to bring it up, to discuss it. But it just changes my entire mood.
It's hard.
It changes my entire mood, because if I don't clear this, if I don't have this conversation right now, by the time that I have this conversation with you, it's been stewing in my head, and I probably came up with like 5 different scenarios, and the delivery is just not going to be the same way the next day. And I struggle with that. That's the part that I struggle when I want to have a conversation, and instead of saying, hey, can we talk about this? Something you said made me feel like this, or it bothered me. I just want to hear you out. I just want to know where it came from, or I don't. I would be like, by the way, I'm upset with what you said. You really pissed me off the other day. What the fuck was that about? Like, I know my delivery is awful. But that's because of that, keeping that and trying to say, I'm not going to react right now. So I truly admire, and I'm not going to use the word admire, I envy people that have the capacity to hold on to that without turning into resentment.
And everyone's different. Just because I'm like that, like my wife, she could never do that. Never.
Yeah, that's why me and her get along.
Yes.
And because we're so truthful, brutally honest, and straightforward, we know where each of us is coming from.
Yeah.
And we tolerate it better because God forbid me and her have a conversation and she stays quiet and she tells me after 2 days that I hurt her feelings. It's just not going to be cool.
Yeah.
Like we just can't do that, because then you're hiding things from me and you should have been forward, because I think that's the kind of relationship that you establish from the beginning. And that's why friendships are so much better than relationships.
I don't know.
I mean, you're so comfortable with your friend. You accept them for who you are. You know their flaws. You know when they're bullshitting. You know when they're being bitches. You know when they're being dickheads. Like, you just know, but then you still have that, you just don't take it personal. With your partner, it triggers the shit out of you. You personalize it in a way.
I don't know. So to me, like you're saying, people's flaws. You know what people like and don't like.
Yeah.
So, you and my wife have the relationship where you guys are very vocal to one another.
Right.
Immediately. And
Right.
that works. This is what you guys are used to.
Right.
But I know, like you were saying, when you're being in a relationship, it's about understanding the other person. And I have understood that the best time for me to bring something up is when I'm not being quiet. When, because the only time that I'll ever really get frustrated with her is when I'm not sleeping well. And so I've realized, and in the past, when I have brought stuff up, when I'm tired, I don't mean it in a negative way, but because I've been quiet, she's like, he's been upset with me, something's not right. And if I get upset with her, if I get upset with her, she's gonna be upset, and then that's gonna last several hours.
It's a vicious cycle.
As opposed if I just keep my mouth shut, I gotta swallow it for 5 minutes, and then we're good.
But then you're still quiet.
Yes, but typically whenever I realize that if I say something, it's going to escalate fast, I'll take a step back and be like, okay, I need to do something to show I have energy, whatever it is. And so...
Why would you do that?
Because I love her. Because I realize that's what she needs, or she's going to be upset. And I don't want me being tired to rub off on her, because I understand what her needs are. And she realizes that when I'm working a lot, like when I get home, I clean the dishes, I put everything away, I put my clothes away. It's just how I am. But what she does is like when I get home, she'll do that for me. So I realize how she is, she realizes how I am, and we pay attention to one another. And that kind of goes back to this, being vulnerable, or whether you need to change someone. If you truly love someone, like, you can be brutally honest with them. Like, I say stuff to my wife that most people could not handle. Like, I am absolutely honest with her. And she's absolutely honest with me. Like, she can come out and just say, hey, you've gained weight. She'll grab my stomach. Like, Does
that bother you?
No, it's just the great thing about us is we don't hide what's we'll say it. We'll say what's ever on our mind. You want to throw it out there no matter how awkward it is or how weird it is. It's just we will speak it. The other day, I was going for a walk. And I hadn't gone for a walk for a while, but I was sleepy. I had just turned in this big assignment, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take a quick 15-minute walk. And I walked outside, and she calls me. And I said, hey, babe, how you doing? We started chit-chatting, and she goes, are you outside? And I said, yes, I'm outside. And I hung up. And then she texts me later. She goes, "Were you doing something?" And I go, "Oh boy."
No, I think the tone of her text is, were you doing something?
Maybe.
Yes.
Whatever it was.
Were you doing something that you hung up on me?
And so, it's about realizing that, she is very in tune with who I am, what I do. And so when I just have come to the point to where I've realized that, just being open and honest. She was very open and honest with me about how that made her feel that I was on a walk. And I don't mind it. And some people would probably think, she's just very jealous, or that's weird, or she's very controlling. When I understand who she is, I understand what she's gone for. She's a very anxious person. She's always worst case scenario.
So you want to give her the reassurance that she needs?
Like, my nickname for her is Doomsday. Like, she was always worst case scenario, and I know that about her. And I knew that when I married her, is, if her mind can go somewhere, it does. But the great thing is, she brought that up, we discussed it, we worked through it, and then a couple of days later, I had to drive somewhere, and I told her, I started texting her every time I went to the gas station just to be funny. Like, I played it off. And so, but we have that relationship where we can, if something's bothering us or something's on our mind, we bring it up. And that's what that is. Being vulnerable and trusting someone is, it's scary, but if you can find someone to be vulnerable with, it's a incredibly beautiful thing.
I agree. It's so true, because that's how I related to why friendships are so much better sometimes than relationships, because that is the type of vulnerability that you have with your best friends. Anything that comes to your mind, you say it, and you spend so much time together. And that's why, like, good friendships last far longer than relationships last, because you are able to express everything without being judged or without judging the other person. And I think what happens that we hide our vulnerability with our partners is because of past experiences where we have been in relationships that showing our vulnerabilities and showing our needs are not only reciprocated or understood, but they're actually criticized. For example, you would say that I would prefer that you call me more often, or I would prefer that you come home after work, that you don't go see your friends after work, or I would prefer you let me know if you're not going to make it, if you would communicate, etc. Or I would like to see you more often or spend more quality time together. Sometimes you would get something like, okay, you're being too needy, or you're being too emotional, or you're being too controlling. And hearing that from your partner puts you in this position where you feel that maybe you are being needy and controlling. So you start doubting, the way that you should approach the relationship, to hide your true feelings, which, what happens, and that's what happens after a while when you hide your true feelings, then you adapt to the point that you said your friend was completely a different person, where he's so used to hiding those feelings, expressing those needs, or just saying what he thinks about something, his opinion. Then it changes you, because you're more focused on avoiding conflict and not upsetting the other person than actually having a healthy interaction where you can communicate anything to each other, but you both should know that it's coming from a good place.
Yeah, I mean...
And how do we know if it's coming from a good place? Like, that's that line that is so thin and it can be crossed, I guess, is the trust.
It's the hard part of it. And, and what happens when you don't have that trust, when you can be vulnerable, when you can't be vulnerable with someone, you will typically gossip or talk to your girlfriends or guy friends or whatever.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
And so that just kind of, just starts piling up. So, with me and her, we put everything out in the open. No matter, and I tell her, I don't care how dumb it is. I went for a walk. You thought something was happening. Like, I don't care how dumb it is. Just say it. So that prevents, and the same thing with her. I'll say stuff to her, and so that just prevents us going to our guy friends and my guy friends or whatever and saying, she just this, blah blah blah, and prevents her from talking about, me to her girlfriends, because I know friends, both male and female, that, when they're apart from their significant other, they instead of talking it out with their significant other, they're talking it out with their friends.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what it's like for women, but for guys, it's typically like, however guys are. And so...
how are guys? Please do share.
I mean, you know how it is.
No, I don't. That's why we're doing this. I want to know.
It just, I guess for the most part, it's just like, yeah, women are the worst.
No matter how stupid it is, just say it.
I mean, that's what it is. It's just like, how women are, or, they're just too emotional, whatever it is.
Okay, so you put us down when you're with your friends.
Other guys do, yes. I don't do it.
Oh, okay. All right, guys. We're talking about other guys. Up until this point, we were talking about Curtis's personal experience. But on this topic, other guys. Okay. So other girls, they would only bring up their partner in a conversation with their best friends if he has been a dick. And that's a venting. That's the place where you vent. It's the same as going to the therapist, but it's a little better because your friends are biased and they're going to tell you what you want to hear, while the therapist will tell you that you got some issues. So when it's good, the conversation doesn't even come up. The name doesn't even come up. When something bad happened, and it's mostly when they don't know how to bring it up to their partner, how to go about this, that's when it comes up. Like, oh, he was being a dick, he made me mad, this is what he said, it hurt my feelings. And then, of course, they haven't even started talking about this with their partner.
Yeah.
So sometimes we're just lucky if we have good friends. And I am personally, like, that's the best thing that has happened in my life. That my closest friends are people that I will say anything to, but there is no, oh yeah, Lori, we're with you. Yep, good for you, girl. You tell him, you leave him, fuck him. There's nothing like that. It's always like, all right, well, did you talk to him? How did you handle it? What did you do? Look at yourself first. And they'll tell you the truth. You like it or you don't. And that's why I love that kind of relationship. And I think it's so important to have that with your friends and have that with your partner, especially with your partner. Because this is a person that you spend most of the time with.
Yeah.
And you cannot suppress your feelings. You cannot hide your emotions, who you are, what you're going through, things that you hate, things that you love about them, about yourself. And yes, I agree with you. It's the hardest thing to do. Like in theory, like, oh my God, I have it all figured out. In my head, it's all figured out. But put me in a relationship right now and give me a situation where you say something to me and I'll be like, I have to swallow like 5 times before I get my shit together. It's very hard in the moment to catch yourself that you're being triggered or that this is not as important. This should not be a fight, or my opinion is not really needed right now.
And I think the older you get, the more self-aware.
Get the fuck out of here.
Whether you're aging
I
from
am
12 to
old
18
enough.
or 18 to
I'm
24,
old enough.
As you gain experience in life, you become more self-aware. I want to find the name of this book.
She comes first. Because I have 3 of my friends that are reading the book right now, and I don't know how many listeners are reading that, but it's a lifesaver.
I will say that was a very helpful book, but don't read it unless you're experienced with sex first. But the book I was thinking about it's called The Untethered Soul. And to me, I've read a lot of self-help books. I've read a lot of I've read a lot of different things when it comes to how to better myself, how to be a better person. And The Untethered Soul, it does, to me, the best job of explaining, how to separate yourself from yourself, look at yourself, and just figure out why you feel the way that you feel. So there are there's certain things in my life where I've had to separate myself from myself and really dig down on why I feel this way. Why am I the way?
Do you do that in the moment or later on when you have time to reflect on a situation?
It's typically afterwards.
Right. So how do you handle it right there and then?
And so
that's where the fights happen, out of nowhere.
And so in the middle of the moment, I'll think to myself, okay, it's better to just listen, understand, because typically when someone's upset, it's a miscommunication. Something's gone.
Most of the time, yes.
And so it's just about listening. What have I done wrong? And, most of the time I don't agree with it. When someone's upset with you, you probably don't agree with it. But again, it's about realizing that it's not you getting upset with you, it's your significant other getting upset with you and what your significant other thinks. And so you have to take into consideration what they've gone through and stuff like that. But again, that's why I think it's important to self-analyze, because once you become very confident in who you are and you understand yourself, when something triggers you, you understand why.
And something important here is that being confident does not mean that you have the highest perception for yourself.
I don't know. I have a pretty high perception
people.
of myself.
Well, people confuse this. Being confident means that you have a high self-awareness, meaning you are aware of your shortcomings, you're aware of your strength, you are aware of your flaws, you are aware of your triggers, you are aware of all of this, and the other person, whatever they can say to you, is not something that it puts you in a defensive mode because you are aware that you do that. For example, I interrupt a lot, and I'm pretty sure that everybody that's been listening to us knows that. I have to say it right there and then. As soon as it comes to my mind and I don't think that the other person is talking, I have to let them finish their thought. And I've had people, friends, that have told me, you do interrupt a lot. You just never let people talk. And I didn't take offense to it because I'm aware. I know.
And that's important.
I don't like it. I have a hard time controlling it sometimes. Like I have to constantly tell myself, shut the fuck up and just listen, let people finish. But it doesn't trigger me. And I think people confuse being confident with I'm always right, or there's nothing wrong with me. No, I don't do that. Like I'm confident in myself. They confuse that with pride or ego, whatever that is. But being confident means you're okay with who you are, right? You know you're not perfect. And you may think, as Curtis, that you're close to perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, we tend to think very highly of ourselves because we have to.
So? You think a lot of people think highly of themselves? I don't think so.
I think they do.
A lot of people.
Well, they act like they think very highly of themselves.
I don't know. I don't think a lot of people
They
do.
think that they're higher than others for sure, and we are seeing this every day. We wouldn't be having this discussion if people didn't go through all kinds of shit in relationship, which most of it is related to pride and ego. Ego.
But I think some of it, yes.
I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I'm hotter than you. I'm wealthier than you. I'm more liked than you. It's always this competition of confidence.
Yeah.
Or they show confidence in a very like arrogant way.
Yeah.
Have you met people like that?
I mean, yeah. I mean.
So do you think they're confident? Or they're just full of shit?
I mean, it's a mixed bag. I mean, some people are overconfident, and some people they need that validation. I mean, honestly, a lot of those people that have inflated egos, there's something deep down inside that they're trying to get that validation that they feel like they're entitled to, but there's always something underneath to where, whether it's their someone in their family didn't approve of them or someone broke their heart in the past. It's, while outwardly they're trying to boost their numbers or have this huge ego, typically those people have something that's underlying where that's coming from. It just.
So would you just still call them confident or just egotistic?
I would probably say misguided.
Misguided.
They don't understand. They're trying to cover up their shortcomings in a way that's not healthy. I used to do it. I mean, part of the reason why I dated around and did the things I did was to boost my ego, because I've been in relationships where I've been told I'm not attractive. I've been told I'm not good in bed. I've been told that I weigh too much or whatever it is. And so, for a little while, it was about validating that I'm not what they said. It's proving it to myself. And, I think what a lot of people struggle with, though, is when they're doing that, they go on this rampage of breaking women's hearts. But I was just always very open, like,
was that like a revenge, or?
I don't know if it's, I mean, maybe sometimes, but I think for the most part it's, just proving to yourself that you could get someone in your bed. But to me, I tried to always just be very respectful of, would it be cool if I got in a relationship? Sure. But at the end of the day, I just looking to have a good time.
You were there to prove yourself and others that, yes, you can be a good lover. You can be attractive. Those were things that you just wanted to prove to yourself they were important for you.
Yeah, and again, that was a dark time in my life, but because I've done it, and the things I've done, who I hung out with, the people I dated, there is nothing that anyone can tell me that can hurt my pride or make me feel less about myself, because I've proven to myself that, I can be with whoever I want. I can do whatever I want. I can dress however I want. Like I can do all these things, and so I don't need that validation anymore. I don't care what other people say.
But you had to go through that journey, though.
I had to prove it to myself.
You had to prove it to yourself. Yeah. And when you met your partner, that was something that you didn't have to hide. That your past and what you did and why you did it and how it made you who you are, etc. It's part of your life. It's part of, your journey. And that's something that you were very transparent about. That was something that was out in the open.
Yeah.
No need to hide it.
I'm open with it to everyone.
To everyone.
I mean,
and that's part of your confidence as well, meaning I own my shit.
And because I'm like that, I don't care if people like me. I have plenty of friends. And so I'm always myself. And there's people out there that don't like me. There's very few people that don't. Frankly, most people...
Do you know them?
I can think of two that come to mind for sure.
I can think of those two too.
And so, but I'm confident in who I am. I know what I bring to the table. And if people don't like that, then they can find something elsewhere.
Right.
That's just my mindset. And so when you're dating, You shouldn't take offense if someone doesn't want to be with you. It just means you're not the right fit, and you should be glad that someone tells you you're not the right fit. And again,
but what if they want to be with you, but they make you feel like shit?
Then it's not the right fit for you.
If they always tell you that you were the one who was wrong, that your needs, are not important, and you should pay more attention to their needs, etc.
It's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street, but sometimes these relationships become very one-sided, and people have a hard time separating the unhealthy relationship with understanding relationship.
And that comes back down to self-respect. If you're with someone that treats you like that, you don't have enough respect for yourself. Because you don't realize what you're worth and how you should be treated. If you truly understood your self-worth and how you should be treated, you wouldn't let someone treat you like that. I've had people that treated me without the respect that I deserved, and I was like, I can't do this. Isn't for me.
And I have been in a situation like that, and I would not say, and I've heard this before from my friends, that that's part of you not respecting yourself. And honestly, I didn't think that's what it was, because I knew and I didn't like it from day one. It was something that I kept fighting. It was something that I would not stand for. It was something that I would not be okay with. But every time I tried to communicate that to the other person, somehow the tables were turned, or my emotions were manipulated in a way to make me second guess that, wait, maybe I pushed the envelope. Maybe I did ask for something unrealistic. Exactly. But then again, though, we don't want to blame ourselves, but at the same time, are we willing to look, to even take a glance at what we are doing, what our actions are in the relationship?
And that's why it's important to know your self-worth and who you are. Because if you're blaming yourself, you don't respect yourself the way that you should. You don't.
It's not blaming per se. Is that you are blame. No, you're not trying to take blame. You're trying to. Okay. I don't know how to put it in the right words.
You are going through your head of all the things that you could have done better.
No, the things that were said to me. The things that were said to me, for example, if I tell you that what you did upset me, it hurt my feelings, the way that you communicated something to me or what you said. And then you come to me and you say, that's not what I meant, but the reason that I said it was because you said this or you did that. So now you're like, okay, why did I do that? So I am trying to look at myself first before I blame the other person.
Were you in the wrong in those instances?
I was never in the wrong for the way I felt. For the way that I communicated how I felt, I'm pretty sure that I was. Because I also know myself. I'm very direct. And if my feelings are hurt, then it's going to come out just like that. Are there better ways to communicate it? Yes, absolutely. Am I a master of it? Absolutely not. Do I want to be better at it? Of course. But it's not that I don't have high regard for myself. It's that I don't want to be the person that always points the finger at somebody else. That always looks at, nope, if I felt wrong, they did me wrong.
Look, if after every argument you walk away from it and you feel like, what did I do wrong? Did I do this wrong?
No, I never thought that I did wrong.
Okay.
I never, and that's the thing, I never blamed myself, but I analyzed what could have gone wrong.
Then that's good. That's fine.
But a lot of people don't do that.
Yes. And that's the problem.
So when it comes to vulnerability, it can't just be one person in the relationship that is completely themselves. It has to be both. And they both have to have the same pure intentions of what they're doing. And be self-aware that, hey, I said this the other day and it hurt your feelings and I'm really fucking sorry. I get it.
Yeah. And again, as long as you know your self-worth, who you are, and can realize that you've done something wrong. If you did do something wrong, you're in a good spot. So you're doing the right thing. It's just if you start questioning yourself after you know who you are, then that's when it gets into, you can always improve. I'm not saying that, you're going to go through something, someone says you did something wrong, and you're in the right. No, sometimes you're going to be in the wrong, but it's about knowing yourself enough to be honest with yourself to say, I wasn't in the wrong, or I was in the wrong. As long as you can make a decision on whether you're right or wrong and don't go back and forth all the time, you're fine.
Right.
Once you know you can navigate that stuff.
Right.
It's not easy. It's not.
So when does it come to a point when you're like, I can't. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, we're way too incompatible. Like, what would be something that will show you how incompatible you are?
When the other person never takes fault, never apologizes. Like, I always apologize, and I'll say, I don't think I'm in the wrong, but I understand to you believe this way. And I always explain how I feel, and sometimes she doesn't understand why I feel the way that I feel. But I'll say, I'm going to explain how I feel. You don't agree with me, and that's okay. I just want you to know where I'm coming from, and I'm sorry I bothered you. So it's about acknowledging that you've upset the person, explaining why you said and felt the way that you did, and then realizing that you two are going to have differences and work through it.
Right.
So, but if someone just constantly is pointing the finger and never accepting fault, because no one's 100% always in the right.
Right.
It's just not.
Yeah, it's just not normal. And the more that we protect that, that's our ego.
Yeah.
And a lot of people operate from that place. What serves them, even if they know that they're completely in the wrong, they will not admit it knowingly. They will not admit it because they feel like they're letting themselves down in front of somebody else, when that somebody else is the person that's supposed to be there for you. Yeah. And so being vulnerable, being self-aware, all of these play a huge part in how you communicate. But then again, how do you know that you've lost yourself in the relationship?
It's when you start questioning yourself. I mean, when you start asking yourself...
But what about other things that make your life? For example, I know couples that they like to do certain activities, and I'm going to the activities, which it's not the most important thing, but it's important to a lot of people. And the other person says, well, you're not going to do these activities anymore because now we're together and the relationship is more important than what you did before. So now you're going to do this activity because this is what I like. Now we're going to go to this place because this is what I like to do in the evening. And you start losing parts of, yourself and what you used to do and what you really enjoyed, even if you just enjoyed spending some time with yourself doing nothing. Is that a compromise that people should make?
So here's my opinion on that. To me, anytime you're in a relationship and you truly love someone, it's never about taking away but enhancing. So for example, my wife, she danced a lot before I met her. And
she doesn't dance anymore.
That's mostly my fault because I was busy, but...
She doesn't dance with me anymore.
You wouldn't go with her to dance. She asks you all the time.
To the class, but not to the dance place that we used to go.
Maybe. I didn't know you guys did that. Like, I don't know how often y'all did that.
Well, we haven't done it very often lately, but we used to do that every Friday night. We used to go dance every Friday night.
All I'm saying is she would go...
And I'm not blaming that. I'm just saying that we do change certain things, that do not really fit, in the relationship. But that's not because we're trying to please the other person. We're trying to respect the relationship.
And that's what I'm saying is you're never trying to take something
right.
away. You're never like, hey, you can't do this. But it's about enhancing. So, as I was trying to say before you tried to
Interrupted
kill me,
you.
she went to dance class. I started going with her. Like, I didn't take that away. I went with her, and she had more fun with me being there because we would dance together. And me, sometimes I like to go see movies. She doesn't really care doing that all the time, but, she'll do it with me, and that enhances the experience for me. So we don't take anything away from, like, sometimes I want to play a video game, and she does her own thing. And so we don't take anything away from each other's lives. We still hang out with our own friends and stuff like that. But we enhance our own lives in the things that we do, whether it's going to the beach, going to the park, making dinner together, stuff like that.
Would you say that you do more of her activities than she does yours?
I would say so, but that's because I moved down here. Like, if she had moved to Nashville, where I'm from, it'd be different. She'd be doing a lot more stuff that I do. I don't know the city as much. And
right.
So, I defer to her a lot more.
Right. So it's about including your partner in the things that you enjoy doing and make it like an experience for both of you. But not all the time. Sometimes you just still want to do something by yourself. Like, I love taking walks at the beach by myself. I would like for my partner to go with me sometimes, but some other times I would prefer to go alone.
Yeah.
And I hope that they don't see that I'm putting myself first and I'm not spending the time with them. And a lot of people do that. They tend to control that kind of freedom that is so necessary to us. But at the same time, it has to be communicated in a way that you do respect what's important to them. But at the same time, they have to balance out the time that they invest in the relationship and the time that they invest into other things.
Yeah, let people be themselves. And it's funny, whenever we first started talking about this topic, I didn't think that we were going to have a lot to say. And this has probably been our longest episode.
Really?
Yeah.
That's because there's just so much stuff that goes on into getting to know each other. And these are the things that these are really the reasons that people break up. When you think about it, when you look at couples, I don't really hear much of couples that say we broke up because our love died. We broke up because we never had sex. Okay, some. But most of the people break up for stupid day-to-day stuff, arguments that can be avoided. They don't want to give in. They feel like they're giving up. They're losing themselves. They don't want to give in. They don't want to understand the other person. And these little things become issues that you just can't stand the person anymore. Yeah. You don't want to be near them anymore. And I think in a way it explains the breakup and getting back together, the on and off thing that people do, because these things are not things that like really hit you, like cheating or something like that. Once you break up, once you take a break, you forget about these things and you miss the person, and then you get back together because the major things were okay. That's why I'm asking, like, is love enough? You're like, but we love each other, we can do this. And then you get back together, boom, you realize this is the reason that we just cannot make it work, because we're so incompatible in the way we communicate, in the way we handle each other's needs, feelings, growth, all of that. And love is really not enough. Yeah. It's a lot of work.
I agree.
A lot of work. And I mean, I'm loving my time being single right now, because when I think of how much work it takes to be in a relationship, I don't know. He's going to have to be very lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you got to find that person.
No, he's going to have to find me.
Or he's going to have to find you.
So yeah, but it's very interesting, and I really like what you said. Yeah, it's not just about what you want. Yeah. It's about what does the other person feel, and if you truly love them, then you would really put that ego aside and do the right thing for both of you.
Yeah, you're right.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you didn't pass out and fall asleep.
I'm pretty tired.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching us.
It's been a great episode. Thanks, guys.
Catch up soon.